Hi, this is Captain Mike. In an earlier video, one in which I made showed you how to make a texture mold. Actually, it was more of a documentation of my process of making that texture mold, and I just went ahead and made a video out of it. But in that video, I mentioned that I would show you a simpler method I was working on at that time. In fact, the method came about before I even got the initial prototype of the first texture mold made, and that's what this video is about. If y'all remember, this is what I worked on. I made a plaster, a master, or a template so that I could press clay into it and come up with a ceramic mold that I could slump glass over. And this is what I came out with. And you know, I was relatively pleased with it, but the process was very laborious, I guess you could say. So I'm going to show you how I do it now. And again, it's still a work in progress, but this is going to be much simpler than this plaster deal that I did earlier. And you guys just kind of bear with me through this. So let's get on with this video and what you're going to need to start this project. Now I'm going to show you what I've got ready to make this texture mold with, and I'm sure I'm going to forget some of these supplies. Some of you will know what I'm talking about, some of you won't. But I'm still going to go through it just like everybody knows. If you have questions, then of course in the comments ask me what I'm talking about, and I will try my best to explain it. Now, to start with, you're going to need to make a transfer layout, and you're going to need some drafting paper. You're going to need some sandblast stencil or something similar to this. You make up your mind if you have a better choice for this stencil as we get on with this project. But you're going to need a piece of stencil. A little about the stencil is it has a plastic backing, and it's sticky, and it'll stick to this piece of plexiglass. Now I use plexiglass because it's just very sturdy. You could use Corian, you could probably even use wood, but the smoother the better. And you could probably use 1/4-inch glass, but glass is problematic. It would crack and break, and then a lot of your work would be wasted. But you're gonna let's just say for this project, 1/4-inch plexiglass is going to be great. You're going to need various and assorted art tools, and you know, I use number 2 pencils. If you use anything softer than a number 2, you're just going to have to do a lot of sharpening. You're going to need a roller of some sort, of course an eraser, unless you don't make mistakes like I do. You're going to either need some gasoline in a bottle or some mineral spirits. Either one of those will work, and of course a rag. And you're going to need something to rub with. I use a piece of glass. It works great. You can also use these little Bondo smoothie things. And you're going to need something to cut the stencil with. You can use an X-Acto knife. I use this spindle here that I used in the granite industry back when I was younger, and I still use them. It is my tool of choice. Now and you'll need some clay. And it's not really important what kind of clay you use, high fire, low fire, whatever. It's not going to matter. You're going to be slumping glass, but you're going to need clay. And that's pretty much most of the equipment. In tools, supplies, if I have forgotten something, I'll mention it as I go along. Okay, one of the tools I didn't mention, and I told you I'd forget something, is you're going to need either a rolling pin and a way to suspend it for proper thickness, or a slab roller. But once you get all that equipment piled up, ready to go, you're going to be making a template. And the first thing you're going to do to make these templates is decide what your subject is going to be. Once you have determined that, then you will make a layout. Now what I do is I go online and I find clip art that I like, in the case of this little cat right here, and you know, I print it off. It does not have to be in color, it can be in black and white. And from this I make what we in the industry call a layout. Now that's what your paper will be for. Tracing paper works good, but you will take and you will put your subject of choice down there, and you will draw it off with a number 2 pencil or whatever you choose. What you do is you draw the subject and you put what we call a V line. It's a double line all the way around it. And once you get it done, it looks like this. But this is your layout. This is what you're going to start with. Then after you do that, you're going to take your piece of plastic, Lexan, plexiglass, whatever you want to call it. You're going to take your stencil and you are going to, you don't have to put any glue. The sticky stuff on the back is enough. And you will just go ahead and get this thing started like that. Roll it kind of like this. And as you go, roll it down with your roller and it will pull the bubbles out. If you don't, you might have some bubbles. Not the end of the world, but there you go. Now don't do like me and try to, you know, get this edge right here off, because I get in a hurry. But it doesn't hurt anything, and I'll show you why. Then I take the aluminum here. The aluminum will mark on this rubber just like this, just like you see, and it gives you the edge of your rubber. Now once that's done, I use gasoline. You can use anything you want. This is going to help the transfer of this subject to this. Now this might be a little difficult to transfer because I've used it once and I may have to rub it. I hope that I don't have to do this part over. But I take the gasoline and I just put it like this on the rubber. It also softens the rubber to some degree. Then I take the piece of terry cloth, whatever you want to use, and you know, wipe it like that. Now I take my little rubber thing and I line this up however you want to line it up. I'm not going to really get real close on this one because it doesn't really make any difference. And then I rub it. Let's just see. Oh yeah, it's coming off. Now, sometimes I put lines around the edges, sometimes I don't. It really doesn't matter. It's just totally, completely up to you and what you want to do, because your subject is going to be different. I'm just showing you the process. Now, as you can see, it kind of, this layout is, you can use them maybe once or twice. If you're familiar with this process, then I don't have to tell you anymore. If you're not familiar with this process, you'll learn it pretty quick. Okay, we're just going to let that go there because I know pretty much where it goes. Okay, you can't see it as good as I would like for you to see it, but you get the idea. And then you will take whatever implement of cutting that you want to do, use either this or you'll use a knife, and you will cut on each marked line. Just like this, every one. And then you will pull this part out, leaving the higher parts raised. And what you get is this. See how this is pulled out? Alright, this is your template. This is what you're going to roll the clay over to get the impression. Because every one of these V-lines, as we call them, will be raised. It'll be in the reverse of this. All these flat parts will be sunk. And then you can color it however you want, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that's the whole point of doing it this way. You can also do it in reverse. Pull this part out and leave the V-lines in. Just another thing that you have to figure out yourself if you want to try it. Endless variations. You could drive yourself crazy trying to figure all of this stuff out. Now this part gets just a little bit difficult sometimes. This is my slab of clay. I rolled it out on my slab roller. I set it to 3/8 of an inch. I rolled it out. If you don't have a slab roller, then you'll have to learn about those if you want to use one. If you have one, you know what I'm talking about. I also took a tool similar to this and I smoothed the texture of the cloth that I use on my slab roller so that this is nice and smooth. Normally I would do the step I'm fixing to show you on my slab roller. I would just readjust the thickness to compensate for the thickness of my template and leave the thickness of the rubber to be impressed. That was about 1/16 of an inch. So you're going to get to see me do this for the first time with a rolling pin and just guessing about it. Now, one of the problems I'm still working on is sometimes the clay wants to stick to the rubber. I have used ZYP, I've used vegetable oil, I've used silicone release agent, I've used all kinds of stuff. And the ZYP works, but it's expensive and I hate to use it. Now, I'm going to turn this over. This is the side that I pulled the stencil out of. And I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to place it on this. Now, in a real world situation, you would make real sure that all of your measurements was perfect. In this case, it's not. And so I'm going to just get it lined up as best I can and I'm going to roll it. And I've never done it with a rolling pin before. Now you can do some math and put some pieces on the sides here that will compensate for the depth. You can do that. It might not be a bad idea because doing it this way without some kind of a depth guide may or it may not work. Yes, I am grunting. I've straddled my camera tripod here and I'm rolling this rascal down. And there you go. Let's just see what we got here, okay? Because this may not work. Now, it's probably going to want to stick to the paper that I have here too. So let's just turn it over. Well, it actually did not stick to the paper very much. Now, let's see if we have enough impression. No, we don't. There's not enough impression on there. So I'm going to go over to my slab roller and roll this down, and then I'll come back and pull it off. You can do this with a rolling pin. This clay is kind of stiff, so y'all forgive me on that. I was just kind of hoping that would work out, and I imagined that you could roll it hard enough and long enough and it would work itself into these grooves. I'm going to put it on my slab roller and I'm coming right back. Okay, we're back from the slab roller, and as I push this down, I can see that it's all in the grooves here, and it squeezed a little excess off, as it always does. I just take my X-Acto knife and I trim it to fit, and you don't have to, but it makes the whole process easier in the long run. So, with that done, let's see if this thing's going to peel off. Now, I did spray the back side of this mold, or template if you will, with some non-silicone mold release. I have no idea whether it's going to work. Now, the hard part is getting it started. You have to be gentle. It's going to want to warp. There's just no way around that. If you can figure out a way around it, or you have better fingers and hands than I do, then that is absolutely great. Once you get it started, I just kind of work it very slow. If you pull it too hard, it will want to deform and it will want to leave clay in the grooves. But this looks like it's coming out pretty good. A little bad place there. All right. There you go. Now, that wasn't bad. It's kind of warped up, but it will flatten out, and I'll show you what I do to help that in just a minute. And I've got some pulled places right here. You just have to smooth them out with your finger. Hopefully your success will be better than mine. But as you see, we have the cat outline here. So technically we have a texture mold that we can fill in with whatever colors we want, and have an interesting glass fusing. Oh, this has been a rough day. So anyway, we're going to pull this aside, and I'm going to show you one that has been fired. Now we'll let this dry, and I'm going to show you again too what I do to keep this thing flat. Then I'll move it, okay? Hey, how's that going? Now this is how I dry the clay piece. This is a piece of plaster that I make. It's just a bat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a lot of folks online show you how to make them. They're really neat to have around if you're doing clay. I lay it on the first bat, make sure that all the humps and all out of it, that it's pretty flat. You want to get everything out of it without messing up the surface. Then I take another bat and I lay it on top of it, and I let it dry. When it dries, it will be flat. Now here's what happens if you don't dry them where they're on a bat and they're flat. This one I just laid down. I wasn't paying a lot of attention. It's one of the first ones I made, and you can see how it kind of curves right there. It's kind of warped up, all right, and it's still usable. It's still usable. It's not going to really matter if you make a wall hanging or something. It's just, you might say it's part of the art, but you want it as flat as you can get it. So that's what you get if you don't put it between bats and ensure that it dries very flat. Now here's our little kitty cat on a piece of ceramic. This has already been fired, but no glass release has been put on it. Now one of the improvements that I'm trying to make is, after the piece has dried but not fired, I take a tool and I try to clean these edges up so that they peak. Right now they're flat, but I clean these edges up and I keep coming back and working the edges so that they kind of round up. The idea is the float, if you're using float glass, will get closer together, and I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. It's one of the problems that I'm working on, but this is what you get after it's fired, and this is kind of what you get with when you put something like ZYP on it. Now I put ZYP on this because I wanted to use it the same day, and I didn't have time to put my preferred glass release on it, which is unique glass separator, but you have to fire it up to 800 degrees, so you need to kind of get your ducks in a row and get everything going. I just wanted to see how this thing worked. You guys know me, know I get in a hurry and it causes me all kinds of problems, but hey, that's what I do. Now let me show you what I do next with some of the colors. Here's what you can do next. Now this is the whole point of the mold. I took this mold here, remember it, with the weird sides? Well, I made one that didn't have any irregularities in it, and I filled this koi in between the raised V-lines with colored frit. In this case it's COE 90. Just remember, if you're going to use COE 90 frit, you got to use COE 90 glass. Now this piece of glass is not cut to fit this, but I'm going to show you what I do. Once you get the frit the way you want it, and I know you'll do a much better job than I do, you can even heap it up so that they match, you know, that there's no white lines in it. You can do that. It's just a matter of how much time you want to take and what you want to do. Once you see this idea, I expect you guys to take it and run with it and come up with some great ideas. I just piddle around and come up with ideas, and then I go away. Now you'll take your piece of glass and you'll put it on it like that, and of course you'll use the glass as big as you want it, and you'll put it in your kiln. Now, I fire these in my little glass kiln to a deep slump. That's all I'm going to say on that, because as you know, if you have a glass kiln, you're going to have to figure out what your kiln will do and the glass that you have and that you're using. I have done these in float glass and all kinds of things. And speaking of float glass, here are two pieces of float glass that I went ahead and slumped clear, nothing. I just put them on the mold and slumped them. And what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to paint in the depressions and with different kinds of ceramic paints. And here's what you can use. Now this is my Delphi, and several other people make it. It's just, this is just glass paint, and it's nothing but glass suspended in some kind of medium. Now, it doesn't seem to care what COE glass you are putting it on. So you can color all of your stuff using this. You can also use unique colors. They've got a great set of colors that you can use the same way. It is glass fusing stuff, and you have to fire both of these that I just mentioned to glass fusing temperatures to get them to come out. But this is a Unique Colors product, and I'm going to do a video on this as soon as I get the chance. You can also go real low tech. This is a product that I have used with some success. It's porcelain or something like that. You guys know I can't pronounce anything. I can hardly talk, but it comes in a lot of colors, and you just paint it on just like you'd paint with craft paint, and you fire it to about 350 degrees for 30 minutes, whatever they recommend. It's on the label. This one here is the same way, and this one's what is really unique. This is bought at Walmart. It is dishwasher safe when fired according to the schedule, which is about 350 degrees. It's different from the other craft paints that it has an hourglass on the top. Get the ones with the hourglass on the top, a lot of different colors. It is pretty opaque, a little bit more opaque than this, but you could build up different coats. But once you get that done, this also works good. Let me jump right in here and change the thing in midstream. This works good for touching up where your frit doesn't work. You just touch up where the frit doesn't come together real good, put it back in the oven and fire it, and it's dishwasher safe. And here we go. These are the ones done with frit. This one has had no touch up, and I used opaque on the flower, and there's no detail here. You need to put some other color down first, then put your pink on it, and you get your stuff. I didn't do that. Now this one right here was this one like this, and it is all frit, except some of the black didn't do good and some of the pink, and you can't hardly tell it. I come on the back side and I touched it up with this stuff and touched it up, put it back in the oven and fired it, and it looks pretty doggone good. Shouldn't have to do that, but sometimes you do. So that is my video on how I make a texture mold in any subject I want to make it. As long as you can download the clip art or freehand it if you're a good artist, just follow the instructions I give you as far as the V-lines or how you want to do it, and figure out whether you're going to have a slab roller or whether you got enough muscle to do it with a rolling pin. I'm sure it can be done on softer clay. There's a lot of things you're going to have to work out, but if you find this interesting enough, I know you all will do just like I do, and you'll have to try to figure out how it's going to work for you, and do you want to go to the trouble. I enjoy it, and I'm really pleased so far with the results I've got. So that's it. That's my video on the improved texture mold. Please watch the first one. It's kind of boring, but you'll see where I started with this. You may pick up something, a tip or two, that you can apply to this, or you can see where you don't need to do some of the steps that I have done. Now, that's it. That's my video on texture molds and what I do with them. I hope it was helpful. I've worried over this for quite a while. Now, I'm Captain Mike, and I am out of here.